This is Andrea Hendricks, your host of Ignite, a new podcast series launched by Authentico. Authentico is a full-service multicultural marketing and diversity, equity, and inclusion agency. Authentico creates meaningful connections to help brands broaden their horizons and reach their business goals. We partner with our clients to reach diverse audiences, creating work that resonates and gets results. And we help organizations develop successful multicultural workforce strategies and inclusive learning initiatives. Authentico is a joint venture of Kansas City-based agencies Waltz Teatrick Advertising and Tico Productions. It grew out of the shared values and goals of CEOs Charlie Teatrick and CC Rojas. Our goal and our promise is to deliver success to brands by tapping into the vibrancy of multicultural markets and to broaden and advance DE&I initiatives. Ignite podcast series is creating meaningful dialogue to innovate and culturally inspire. If you look up the meaning of Ignite, it shares focusing your energy and attention to creating attractive, positive outcomes for your life or your business. Today, we're honored to launch episode 1. This episode will focus on perspectives from the top. What can organizations do to enable progressive strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion? To keep up to date, we're coming up with other things soon. Be sure to follow Authentico on our social media channels, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Join me on episode 1 today. And today, our guest is Joe Reardon, President and CEO of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. He became president in 2016 and is the former mayor and CEO of the Consolidated City County of Kansas City, Kansas, and Wyandotte County. Reardon is a lifelong resident of Kansas City and graduated from Rockhurst University and the University of Kansas School of Law. Throughout his public service career and as president and CEO of the chamber, it is fitting that we launch our episode with Joe. He continues to model the way and champion what is right for diverse communities in this region. Let's get started. Welcome, Joe, to Ignite. Today is your day. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hendricks. It's great to be with you and to all those that are listening. I'm looking forward to a great conversation. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So today we're going to share with our audience progressive strategies around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you know, the workforce, workplace, marketplace, and community are changing in ways that requires management and leadership approaches that embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. Can you share, as we start our dialogue today, what diversity and inclusion mean to you? And why do you think it's so essential that we have progressive strategies around this topic?
Well, thanks for the question. And maybe I'll start with the second part first. You know, I have to kind of do this close to home. I love Kansas City, and I think we're in an amazing place right now as a community. And I also think one of the things that makes us fantastic is we're this city in the middle of the country, but we really have a really diverse population that makes up our Kansas City region. And I think that would surprise a lot of people that maybe aren't from Kansas City or don't know much about the Midwest. But as we think about that, it really provides us an opportunity. And it provides us an opportunity to make sure that the decisions we make, the engagements that we have, the efforts that we have in community are ones where we're bringing everyone and every voice to the table. And I think if we're able to do that, it's going to lead to the greater Kansas City that all of us want to see continue to happen. Diversity and inclusion to me means that we're being intentional in bringing those different perspectives, those different people from different backgrounds to the table to holistically inform our conversations, our thinking, our strategies, and making sure that we are including that broad representation of leadership in the decision-making processes, both within our businesses, but also within our communities and within government as well. And I think this is super essential to improving outcomes for all of our community at every level and for making sure that business is being successful, both small and large business, and increasing participation from a variety of experiences. I think there's great data out there that you're well attuned with, Dr. Hendricks, but I can tell you as I look at the businesses that are successful in Kansas City and the ones that are growing and the dynamic that's there, they're focused on diversity and inclusion and making sure that they're doing all that they can to bring those different backgrounds and different experiences and the special talents and expertise and knowledge that comes with that to the table to enhance and to improve and to engage. And the outcome also is one where I think it lifts the entire community and city up as well.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I think you really gave a new definition to progressive because as you shared today about how Kansas City may be overlooked in having strategies for success, you define that, we have to enhance more. We have to understand and increase our knowledge and awareness, and that it takes not only the individuals in the community, but the business community as well to be progressive in this area. I use 3 words. I think you shared voice, but I use 3 words all the time: voice, visibility, and vision. If we can get others who are kind of on the fence or in that gray area to really think about leveraging their voice, giving greater vision and visibility to this, we can even, outshine that progressive part that you so eloquently shared today with that question. So appreciate that. And we'll kind of delve deeper into some other areas in just a moment. But I agree with you. It's an opportunity for us to leverage that even more. So when we think about companies are struggling to mature, and that's not just in the greater Kansas City area, this is across to mature progressively their DE&I initiatives. I think one of the data points was shared, with only 22% indicating in 2023 or 2022, 2023 indicated that they are in the expert or advanced stages. They still have work to do. What does great diversity look like to you? And then can you share some progressive strategies that organizations should focus on first? Should they focus on workforce first, workplace or community or marketplace? So what does great diversity look like, and what should they focus on first?
Well, one of the things you mentioned in that question I think is really important is that we're all on a journey, right? And we haven't arrived yet. And there's so much more that we can learn and do. And I think that's part of this as well. Being intentional also means that you're looking at what you're doing well, but you're also critically looking at what you could be improving or different ways of approaching. And I think we need to say that at all times when we're talking about a topic like this. But from my perspective, when you walk into any room, great D&I practices would lead to a group of people that's fully representative of the community in which that organization, that business dwells, and it represents the community's makeup. And I think the other part of this is, and it's super important, is that everyone feels empowered to share their experiences. And I think that's super important, giving each participant the opportunity to confidently use their voice in finding solution to shared issues, and creating that space where everyone feels included is super important. It's not enough just to set the table, right? It's very important to make sure that when people come to table, that they can be comfortable enough to share their unique perspectives, to share where they're coming from, because that's what's going to lead to the kinds of solutions, the kinds of advancements that are going to be durable and that are going to be lasting in a community. And I think part of this also that I dwell on, I like your 3 words, voice, visibility, and vision, but part of me thinks that if great diversity, equity, and inclusion is going on in whether it's a business or an organization, all individuals need to feel they belong at that table, and that their conversations and that their contributions are valued, and that they can find them in the improvements and the decisions that are being made. And I always kind of come back to this idea of belonging. I think it's so important. And I think that when you can get to that place where everyone feels as if they belong, there's a level of trust and respect that really can be built upon to make great things happen. You talked a little bit about what progressive strategies organizations should focus on first. And I don't know if I think every organization, wherever you are, there may be a different thing you ought to focus on first, depending where you are in the journey. But I think we all have to be intentional about fostering that inclusive workplace environment and to support a workforce and create a workforce that has a sense of belonging and that is willing to let others into that sense of belonging. And that's part of a culture, because it's not enough for the organization sort of at its highest levels just to make these efforts real and intentional. It needs to permeate into that organization in a cultural way so that sense of belonging is there in every individual, and a willingness to make sure that they can pass that sense of belonging on to those that are new to that community or organization or coming from a different perspective or place or background. A DEI ecosystem that builds on that essential core of a workplace that is focused on people and making sure that they are at the table in a very real way, that leads to a ripple effect. And I think that can lead to efforts beyond that particular organization. And that starts to get to the community-wide sense of who we are and what we're about and how we identify with one another. So it can start in that organization, but if it's done well, it's a cultural kind of thing that can really permeate far outside of the walls of whatever that organization might be.
Oh, absolutely. Well said. And I agree with you on that. When you think about belonging, that is the action that you want to see. When you get to fairness and workplace and workforce strategies, belonging is the glue. That's when you found that progressive strategic level, and you can then measure against that, and that trust connects with that as well. In in some organizations, they call, for those that are listening to the audience may not know this, but many, many years ago, it started out as the maturity model for success for DE&I. Now you're hearing progressive strategies. And then for those of you who are studying the work, about 10, maybe 15 years ago, more organizations started to leverage the areas of belonging. And there's a lot of research about that on how to become more culturally intelligent and culturally rich around this space. I do agree that most people, when we talk about which one should you start with first, they share workplace and culture has to be the glue as well in order for the talent that arrives or the suppliers that arrive or the communities that arrive to visit your space. If your culture is eroded and doesn't have progressiveness or maturity in this space, then it's a revolving door, as you shared earlier. So I always ask that question just to kind of get a pulse check on where to go. And you're right. I think depending on the organization, the time of the year, those kinds of things are often left up to the leaders to determine that. So those of you in the audience can learn more about progressive strategies, maturity models, and then don't leave out belonging as one of the best practices. So maybe as we begin to share more as the chamber, can you share some impactful work or plans underway to enhance this understanding and knowledge of D&I in your space?
Yeah, absolutely. And, every organization finds itself at a different place depending on the size and scale. And so one of the things that we're proud of at the chamber, and not every chamber can do what we're doing just because of their own size and scale, is, we have it in our leadership team, a vice president of DE&I, Greg Valdivino, and he's been with our organization for quite some time. And several years ago, we elevated him and his position to our leadership team as a vice president position. And I think that's super important. I think you have to model at the highest levels inclusive behavior and create an environment where diversity is valued. And that has to be modeled. And I think that's how you start to build a culture around that. And then I think, for us at the chamber, we have an internal and external audience. So, we need to make sure, as every organization should be, making sure that we're providing those education and training opportunities around this important topic to everyone on our team. And that's super important because that's part of intentionality. And that's the great kinds of work that you do, Dr. Hendricks. We need to lean on you to make sure that we're having the intentionality and then making sure that we have our entire team has an opportunity to dive in deep. So we focus on that with our internal team. And then we're external facing with a lot of our work. So one of the things that Greg has undertaken in the last year through his efforts is an allyship series that we have undertaken in partnership with Ally Lab. And the KC Chambers allyship series has kicked off. We've had several sessions and they've been super popular, and they continue to focus on signature infusion of DEIB and design thinking with fun and action-oriented learning experiences. And the 2024 series is going to focus on allyship in the Kansas City region by exploring ways for improved allyship within specific communities. And I've got to say, just making sure that we're providing these opportunities to businesses, large and small. And a lot of times, our medium and small businesses don't have the opportunities and don't have the infrastructure perhaps to dive in to some of these topics. And that's one of the things the chamber is pretty passionate about, is offering those opportunities. And then, of course, the partnership that we formed with Authentico is super important and exciting. And I think that's one where we're really looking at how we can make sure that we're bringing the right people from the right businesses to the table to focus on promoting the DE&I Certificate of Mastery and the capstone program that Dr. Hendricks, you're leading. The inaugural in-person cohort session is going to begin this spring in March. And as it's open to DE&I professionals, human resource leaders, and other industry managers and executives looking to discover real solutions to building inclusive organizational environments that inspire cultures of belonging. That's another important initiative that we've just started working on with you. And I'd like to mention two more if I could.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And again, this next one is an external one, but it's also critical, and it's called our Welcoming KC initiative. And that's one where we're bringing together government, business, nonprofit, and we're creating a roadmap that identifies the programs, policies, and activities needed to accomplish our goals of being an inclusive community, one that's open to all. This includes things like language access, educational resources, workforce development, and the goal is for Kansas City to be certified through Welcoming America as a certified welcoming community. And we're getting ready to apply for that certification here this month, which is very exciting. But I think we want to make sure that we're putting that infrastructure in place that's not just within those businesses, but also that community connectivity that speaks about, and we all pride ourselves in Kansas City. We pride ourselves on being Midwest friendly, and this is being intentional about being welcoming to all people from all backgrounds, from all places. And it's not just saying that we're welcoming to them, but that we're a community that seeks to welcome them, and that's very important. The last one I'll mention is a project project that I've been involved in for, I think we're going on our second year, and it's called Project Lead. And this initiative is actually modeled after a program that really started out in the legal profession. And that program is called the Mansfield Rule. And what really goes on in Project Lead and the Mansfield Rule is our effort to make sure that we're broadening the pool of those that are applying and then being considered for hiring or promotion, to make sure that in our case for Project Lead, that 30% of that pool is diverse. And we're just the second year of the program. We've got 7 businesses in the program in areas like healthcare, construction, banking, and higher education. And what we've learned from the legal profession, this is really wonderful and it's important learning, is that if you broaden that pool of applicants to make it a diverse pool, 30% diverse, and then you hire for the best. So you get that pool and you hire for the best. What's happened in the legal community is at the highest levels of their organizations, they're seeing a more diversity in their partnership track. They're seeing more diversity in their business development track. The outcomes have been quite wonderful. And we're starting to see some of that happen even into our second year. And so our effort is really to move beyond the legal field and say, this is something that we can explore and do in all kinds of different businesses. And so far, it's been really great. We've had great engagement from the 7 member organizations that are doing it. And by the way, we also are organization committed to it. We have 2 leadership positions open right now, and we've focused on diversifying our own candidate pool as we seek to fill them. And it's been fantastic. It's been going very well. So
you just shared examples and, so fitting for our topic, progressive strategies of what organizations, leaders can do to champion inclusivity in the workplace and the community. And so, a true advocate, the chamber being here today, Joe, you being here today to share that. I hope the audience has taken great notes to learn some of the impactful work and plans that are underway, but also it's also enhanced their knowledge and understanding about what they can be engaged with on their own or with their organization, or even put some new things together for themselves. So I think that you've shared some really neat ways that companies can move the needle. So as we close this episode, I always love to ask a question about what's a favorite best practice for you, an article, a book, or a tip that you want to leave the audience. Any final thoughts that you want to leave the audience as we part ways today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. 2 thoughts there. One is, as we think about the community of Kansas City, and, all of us, you, me, and many that are listening to this podcast, if you're from the Kansas City area or beyond, we all benefit every day in the chamber's perspective from the economy and all that we're trying to build in Kansas City. And we need to be aware that if we want to truly enhance this community and make it advance, we need to make sure that table is getting larger and we're bringing the entire community to it, and making sure that everyone in Kansas City is brought to the table of inclusion in a way that they can benefit from the economy and all that we're doing to try to advance Kansas City. And the more that we're intentional about that, the stronger we all will become. I think there's a moral imperative to this, but there's also an imperative relative to building a great business or building a great community, making sure that you have the diversity of ideas and people and all of that included at the table. Super important. Okay, so you asked sort of what I think is great out there. There's a podcast on NPR called Code Switch, I think is fantastic. I thought I'd mention that. And then the other thing is that, as you mentioned, I went to KU Law, and so maybe, I'm going to go back to this idea of our Project Lead, but the Mansfield Rule has been around in the legal profession for about 7 or 8 years, I believe. And there's amazing outcomes that have happened because of it. And there's other things now that are being done in the legal profession because of the Mansfield Rule. The organization that administers that was set up to do it is called Diversity Labs. And I'd highly encourage anyone to go out there and take a look at Diversity Labs website and some of the work they're doing and some of the outcomes they've had, because I think it really provides a perspective within an industry that really has taken this on and trying to move the needle. And they are. In the legal industry, diversity has not been a hallmark of the legal industry. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And to see that they've taken this on and that they're having advancements in it and some of the work they've done, it's been very interesting to me. And I think others would find some of that work to be compelling as well.
Well, Joe, well said today. Thank you so much for your insightful perspective. And you're absolutely right. Diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives benefit businesses in a variety of ways, whether it's from recruiting to profitability, a function that an individual or a business is working on. There are so many ways to support a fair and respectful work environment. And you've shared many of that with us today. I know everyone listening gleaned best practice approaches to this very topic. So as we leave this episode 1, I want to take the moment to thank you for listening and encourage you to continue to climb in this space. We hope you enjoy this new episode and look forward to having you engaged in future programs. See you next time. Go out and ignite your strategies.